I can't tell you how happy I am to see all these faces up here. My life is natural hormones. I've changed my entire life. Dr. Lee's changed his entire life to get us to get out the information on natural hormones. I am a compounding pharmacist. For 10 years, okay, I was a regular pharmacist. I remember as a young kid, I used to say to myself, here's a pharmacist that has 5 pharmacies. If I were able to have 5 pharmacies, I would be successful. And the truth is, in 1998, I had my family back in New York, and we had 10 pharmacies. And you know what? I didn't feel successful. I felt like I was just treading water. I didn't feel like I was doing anything for humanity. And now, when we found natural hormones, when I found Dr. Lee, when we see what we're doing, and we see the amount of good that we're doing for people, it's become a quest for me. With that being said, I want to be able to educate you as much as I can today on what are hormones and what the difference is between the synthetics and the naturals. Well, what are hormones? Hormones are like architects. They read the DNA and they help the body remake itself. If you think about it, you'd say to yourself, okay, we have a city, we're going to put up 50 buildings. We have 50 architects. How well are those buildings going to be made? Pretty well. Because you have one architect sitting there and making sure that this building is being done every single day. Well, what would happen if we took out half of those architects? Or even worse, 90% of those architects. Now one architect has to run from building to building to building. Things are going to fall through the cracks. That's what we call aging. As our hormone level starts to drop and our vitamin level starts to drop, all of a sudden our bodies are not being rebuilt in the right fashion. One study once showed that if you took a human being and you gave it the perfect amount of water, the perfect amount of nutrients, the perfect amount, and kept their hormones high, perfect amount of vitamins, good air, devoid of stress, it would last to be about 120 to 150 years old, and when it died, it would die looking like we do at 75. That came up to the idea that we're probably aging 2 years for every one in this country. We're not meant to have stress of seeing 2 planes crash into the Twin Towers. We're not meant for that. We're not meant for a 30-year mortgage. We're not meant for being able to have a car payment, the kids, the school, the PTA, paying bills, and everything else that goes along with it. All of that puts enormous amount of stresses on us, okay? And what happens? Our hormones pay for it. We're not meant for McDonald's. We're not meant for Burger King. We're not meant for all of the different fast foods that we eat. Why? Because those fast foods put stresses on us in one way or another, and all of a sudden, our hormones pay for it. As we age, our hormones decrease. We know that. As we age, our vitamins decrease. We know that. The result is a body that's being made in a less than efficient fashion. Your body is constantly being rebuilt. Over a 3-year period, they did a radioactive isotope study, and they showed that 90% of your body is torn down and rebuilt. 90% over a 3-year period. What's happening? What's happening to our bodies? Why is it that our bodies don't look the same 3 years ago as they do now, and they will not look the same 3 years from now? And what happens when you go in through menopause and all of your hormones go into the tank and your body starts to be remade, and it's remade in a bad fashion, okay? And all of a sudden people start seeing osteoporosis and all the other disease that we associate to aging. Why? Low hormonal function. Let's move on. Another problem that we have with conventional medicine. Right now, if you look at a thyroid levels will say, for example, and I just put this in as an example, between 1 and 10. So what happens if you are a person that all of your life when you were younger were running on a 9? You could eat whatever you want, never gained a pound, and all of a sudden, as life goes on, you start eating less and gaining more weight. And eating less and gaining more weight. You go to the doctor, and the doctor says to you, okay, let's take a look at your thyroid, see if you do have a thyroid problem. And they check you, and you're at a 2. Well, guess what? Between 1 and 10, you're normal. They don't want to know that you were running on a 9 all your life. All they want to know is that you're in between the normal ranges. You don't need any supplementation. So what do? You starve yourself to try to make sure that you don't eat more than you're supposed to. the levels of hormones, not only the thyroid, but all the other hormones are off. They're off because they're antiquated. This thyroid hormone level is right for 30 years ago, not right for now. The way to look at hormones was good for 30 years ago. It's not right for now. If you look at a man's hormone, when we used to do the blood before we did the saliva, we saw that the man's blood testosterone should be between 800 and 1,000 between the ages of 29 and 40. Well, wait a minute. Well, who do you think had the 800? The 40-year-olds. And who do you think had the 1,000? The 29-year-olds. Well, I'm 41, and I don't want to be 41. I want to be like the 29-year-olds. You know, why can't I have my hormone levels back up to where I was when I was 29? Is there something wrong with that? Because if you went to the doctor and the doctor said you don't have enough magnesium in your body, you need to take supplements of magnesium, no one would ever fight that. If you don't have enough zinc in your body, you need to take zinc, no one would ever fight that either. If you came in and you don't have enough insulin in your body because you're going on to be a diabetic, no one would even think twice about taking the insulin. But here, we have a situation where our hormones are dropping because of age. And not so much because of age, but because of our external factors that are causing us to age faster, and no one's thinking about replenishing them. If you replenish your hormones, we did not find the fountain of youth, okay? We didn't find that. We think we found the fountain of health. We think that if you look at people that have hormones that are no longer in the right levels and you replenish them back to those normal levels, that we do change people's symptoms. We have been able to alleviate a lot of the symptoms. Take a look at today's American average quality of life. We kind of along, we do very well when we're young, and then we start dropping down, and then we bounce along the bottom as we get older, and we expect to die. So you reach a certain point, and you're saying, okay, I'm a couch potato, but what do you want? Like Dr. Lee was talking about before. Well, you're 70 years old. What do you expect? You know, I gave this seminar in front of 500 firefighters across the country, and I said, you know, person's in his 60s, he's retired, he's not expected to go out and have a good time playing golf. We shouldn't be able to take care of him and give him a little bit more spunk in his life. We shouldn't be able to give him an erection at 65. We shouldn't be able to worry about whether or not he's going to do the gardening. No, we are supposed to worry about that. If a person goes out and works for 30 or 40 years for society, doing whatever job they're doing, they should be allowed to enjoy the later years. Okay? If you look at hormones, hormones has got so many different variations of illnesses and different conditions that we can help. You look at someone and you say, wow, here's a guy who got sick, whatever the sickness was. And over a period of time, 6 months, you look at him and you say, wow, he aged 20 years. How can it be that he aged 20 years? His hormones were depressed and his body started to build itself back in an old fashion. Okay? Now he gets better. He beats the disease. He starts to take the right vitamins. He starts to walk all the time. He starts to drink more water. He starts to eat more salad. He starts to do whatever he can to make his life a little healthier. You see him 6 months after he beat the disease, and he looks better than he did before he actually got sick. Why? Hormones. When you see a guy in the gym, and the guy's doing 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, and he has great abs, and then right next to him is a guy's doing 500 sit-ups, and his abs are terrible. Okay? Why? Hormones. All hormones play a huge part in our lives and in our bodies. If you look at a fruit fly, okay? Fruit fly goes 28 days, great quality of life, and then boop, dies. It's over, okay? I don't know about you guys, but I've talked to people that are in their 70s, and they say to me, and I said, you know, you should live to be about 150 years old. He goes, another 75 years? You could keep it. I don't want it. Okay? But now I tell him, I say, look, remember that guy that was 150 years old or 120 years old? And when he died, he looked like he was 75? What do you think he looked like at 75? Maybe what most of us look like at 40? Okay? Whoa, wait a minute. If I could have my body as 40 for another few more years, yeah, I'd buy into that. Well, exercise helps get your hormones back into normal level. The right vitamins and the right food and the right attitude, prayer, okay, or meditation helps get your hormones back into the right level.
But what happens to those people that no matter what they do, they can't get those hormones back into those levels? What happens if it's just too hard to do it? That's where we come in. That's where we were able to say to you, hey, look, if you need hormone replacement, like Dr. Lee said, you have a Chevy truck, let's put in Chevy parts. You got a Ford truck, let's put in Ford parts. In your body, we know what they are. And so does everybody else, except you can't patent it. 4 basic hormones that we test are different for men and for women. But if you look at them, a lot of them are exactly the same. Testosterone is the same, DHEA is the same, estradiol is the same. Well, are you telling me that we have the same hormones in men and in women? Yes, we do. Well, how many hormones are there? Over 100. Okay? Well, why'd you pick these? Because these are the ones that will make the most or the largest impact on your life. These are the ones that if you're missing them and we replace them can make huge changes in quality of life. Well, is the testosterone the same for men and for women? Yes. And is estradiol the same for men and for women? Yeah. So why is it that men and women are different? If you look at a man, if you looked at the statue of David, remember the statue of David? Nice built, and all the women go, ooh, you know? You look at the statue of David and you say, perfect man, perfect legs, perfect arms, perfect pecs, perfect everything. That's the guy that would be the epitome of a male. If we check that statue's hormones, we would find that his testosterone to estrogen ratio is 40-1. That's the difference. We may have the same chemicals floating in our bodies, but the difference is the ratios that we have. Well, how about that beautiful woman? Where is she? She's this way. Same chemicals, but different ratios. The ratios of the hormones is what affects our well-being. Well, wait a minute. Let's think about this a little bit. Person is young. They start menstruating. They start making a lot of estrogen. As they make a lot of estrogen, what happens? Their breasts start to fill out. Their hips start to come out. All the secondary female characteristics start to show themselves. Why? Because of high amounts of estrogen. Now, little by little, less and less estrogen is made. I'll talk to some women and they say to me, it's gravity that lets them come down. It's not gravity, okay? It's the lack of estrogen that's there to support the tissue that makes them fall, okay? It's the same thing with the rest of the tissue all over the body. The lack of hormones that are there to support them, whether it's because of lack of exercise or the wrong food or whatever it may be, it's not there to support the tissue and the tissue seems to sag, okay? Now that I got there to the beginning of menstruation, I might as well get there and start talking about something. That is, how does this happen? How does this miracle of being able to become, or childbearing years start? There's a hormone that is released from the brain called follicle-stimulating hormone. It goes down to the ovary and gets that ovary to start producing eggs, okay? As it starts getting those follicles to produce eggs, one every month is picked to mature. The first time it received that message, 16,000 other follicles died. Now let me ask you right now, if I said to you I need a volunteer, a few of you would say, yeah, I volunteer. Some of you would say, please don't call me. Please don't, whatever you do, don't pick me, okay? Well, what happens inside of a woman's body? She's getting a call. Calls go down the first month. We get the volunteers. The ones that are real happy to volunteer, they make a lot of estrogen, a lot of progesterone. The body starts to develop. Well, what happens after getting more and more volunteers? After 5 years, after 10 years, after 20 years of asking for volunteers? Who's left? The same people, like the people here, that when I first said I need a volunteer, are looking, please don't pick me. How well are they going to make estrogen? Not very well. How well are they going to make progesterone? Not very well. What happens? You're into perimenopause. And that's how we get into perimenopause. Men, we talk about testosterone and we say testosterone is what makes a man a man. You will lose about 2% of your testosterone, 1% to a binding globulin that steals it from your blood. Another percentage is lost through testicular atrophy, about 2% a year. So if you do the math, you say, I'm 25, I'm losing 2% a year, 25 years, I've lost 50%. I'm half the man I used to be at 50 when I was at 25. Now, you know, the women will laugh at that, and the men will laugh at that too. But I gave this seminar once, and there was a woman sitting on that side, and she had come 3 or 4 times to the seminar, and finally she came once, and when she came, she brought her husband. And as she's sitting there with her husband just went, when I came to that part, he went, shh, and she started to cry. And I looked at her and I said, you know, afterwards, I couldn't wait to ask, I said, why did you cry? And he said, when I came to the part that I told people that at 50, you're half the man you used to be at 25, and you're 3 times more likely of committing suicide due to depression. He said, that's me. And she didn't know it. It's very important, the hormones. I'm going to tell you some things today about why men should be sensitive to women and what they're going through. And I'm going to tell you some things of why women should be sensitive to men. When you come out of this, you're not going to be able to look at your spouses the same way. When you finish with this, you're not going to look at anybody the same way. Dr. Lee and I will go out and have a cup of coffee, and we'll sit there and go, oh, low estrogen, oh, low progesterone, oh, low testosterone. And we size everybody up, okay? We can help that person, okay? But it's because we're so used to it. We've gone, thousands of people have come in front of us, and we've talked to them already. So we see a lot of pattern recognition, as he says. DHEA. DHEA, for a long time, we didn't know what it was. We thought it was an intermediary hormone, okay? Not only us, but doctors themselves didn't know what it was. Now we find that it actually helps. It's 80% of all the hormones that are floating around in the blood. We find that it helps in multiple sclerosis, in fibromyalgia, okay, in systemic lupus erythematosus. If you're low on DHEA and we bring those levels back up to normal and you have those diseases, symptoms disappear. I didn't say we get rid of all of them, but a lot of them are attenuated. DHT. DHT is the dihydrotestosterone. It is what's responsible for our solar panels, guys, as we start to grow older. It's also what's responsible for the middle part of women as they start to get older and they start losing hair. We use it, we check it because, number one, it is important to facilitate a man's erection, okay? We just don't want too much of it compared to the other hormones, because then it'll also help or increase the rate of prostate cancer. Estradiol. Why would we check estradiol in a man? Because of the ratio. I'll tell you how important that ratio is. Man comes into the pharmacy, he's 22 years old. It happened a few years ago before we got really into the swing of things. And we had him check it in the blood, and we found out that his blood level of testosterone was 725. It should be between 800 and 1,000. But 725 is really not that low, okay? But his estradiol level was at 100. Guess what? He came to us with a major complaint. The major complaint was he was growing breasts. I sat with him, and I said to you, and I ask you now, okay? If you all want to put yourselves in his position, you're a 22-year-old male, and you're growing breasts. When you were 19, you were growing breasts. When you were 16, you were growing breasts. So what happened? You didn't take off your shirt when your friends took off their shirt. When everybody else went to the pool, okay, you went home and did your homework. And because of the high estrogen comes depression. Why? No progesterone to offset it, which I'll get into later, okay? But here he is, he came to me and goes, if you can't help me, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I didn't understand what he meant by that. But we went through the route and we looked at the hormones. They said, we really don't have that big a disparity. I mean, that much, we can't supplement them testosterone, okay? Because the problem is not he doesn't have enough testosterone. The problem is that he's converting his testosterone to estrogen. How do we stop that? Zinc. Zinc was low. We checked him. We found out that he had, in his nutrients, zinc was low. When we upped his level of zinc, and I always talk about this, at the time was $2.28 for a bottle of zinc, okay? He started to take it. In 3 months, he came back, and just like when estrogen is no longer in women, their breasts recede. Guess what happened to him? His breasts started to recede, okay? Estrogen was down. We checked him again. His estrogen went up to 800, only 75 points, but his testosterone went up to 800, but his estrogen went from 100 down to 25. 40-to-1 ratio. Breasts recede. I talked to him and he goes, you know, you changed my life. You really, really helped me. And that was one of the clinchers that got me going in this. But when I talked to him, he goes, you know, I don't think you realize how much of a difference this made. Remember when I said to you, I don't know what I'm going to do? I said, yeah. He goes, I was contemplating suicide. I was that depressed about what was happening. And nobody knew it. Okay? These are important discussions that we're having. That when a woman is pregnant, the level of estradiol goes through the roof. You know what I say to that? I said, well, what happens when we have a president? Do we put one Secret Service person around them, or do we put 50? We put 50. You know why? Because we want to protect our president. Well, here you have this one-cell baby that's going to change to umpteen different cells. And Mother Nature's own protectant is to raise progesterone and raise estradiol. When we talk to some conventional doctors, they say, well, estradiol doesn't do anything. It's not a strong estrogen at all. There's no need to give it as a supplement. And I say to that, neither does a bulletproof vest until you get shot. And you're getting shot every day by the xenoestrogens, which are the plastics that we drink in the water that we drink, okay? That by the different types of pesticides that are out there that act like false estrogens and attach to those binding sites, and other countless chemicals that we are faced with every single day. Estradiol protects a woman, and estradiol will actually, I believe that one day, one of the cures for cancer will be estradiol. I just can't prove it, okay? But estradiol will help in finding the cure for cancer. If we look at this, well, by the way, 80% of what, at the minimum of any type of estrogen you get from us, 80% of it will be estradiol, which is similar to what should be in a woman's body when she's younger, okay? We have ratios that go 90 and full 100% of estradiol. Progesterone. Progesterone is my best hormone. It is the best hormone. It's the one I have the most fun with. Progesterone is what almost everybody, all the women need. PMS, no such thing. Ooh. Go ahead, give it back to me, yell at me, tell me that you've never been through PMS. Of course you say PMS, no such thing. I say there's no such thing as PMS. There's only PDS, progesterone deficiency syndrome. PMS gives you bloating, progesterone takes care of the bloating. PMS gives you headaches, progesterone takes care of the headaches. PMS gives you irritability, put on the progesterone, it calms you down. Progesterone binds with the same binding sites, the GABA receptors in the brain, that Valium does. So let me ask you something. If you know somebody and they're taking Valium all the time and they're sitting there like this, you say, oh, okay, life is all right, everything is great, and they're nice and calm. Everything is calm. Oh, look, the house is on fire. You know, everything is nice and calm, and then you take the Valium away from that person. How are they going to be? Don't look at me that way. Don't do it. Oh, always constantly on their nerves, always constantly upset. Why? Irritable, to say the least. Well, you have natural progesterone that's being made. Remember those eggs? Okay? They were making a certain amount of progesterone for a certain amount of estrogen. Well, now they're not making anymore. Remember, the volunteers are gone. Okay? You got the low end, the low of the barrel of the volunteers. Not enough progesterone. How is that person going to be? Guys, you must be sensitive. Okay? The women need our help here. Women will have, it's just as if I told you, if a person that was on Valium and is no longer on it and they take it away, they're going through withdrawals, the withdrawals of progesterone. We must be sensitive to their needs. Progesterone is an incredible hormone. I tell this story about my wife. One day I'm over by the refrigerator and I open the door and she comes in, and when I'm there by the refrigerator, she can't get through because of my small demeanor. And she comes up and she says to me, I'm going for the Hershey Bar. Earlier that year, we had bought this huge Hershey Bar for one of my kids, and we just left it there. It's pretty much like a plaque, you know? And she goes, I'm opening the Hershey Bar. I said, honey, you don't want to open it. No, I'm opening that Hershey Bar. And I said, I knew if I didn't get out of the way, I was going to get hurt, okay? But I said, you know I talk about this. You know I know what I'm doing. Listen to me. Take a little bit of sugar, take a little bit of progesterone, and all of a sudden, it'll go away. The craving for the chocolate goes away. And she said to me, all right, I'll try it. You see, when a man has a craving for chocolate, it's usually due to low magnesium. When a woman has a craving for chocolate, it's a life or death situation. You know, if you, and I say this jokingly, but not really, okay? Because it is. It's a life or death situation. Why? How can I say that and honestly explain it? If you look at what happens when a woman is progesterone deficient, estrogen dominant, okay? The estrogen being dominant causes the yeast in her body, in her colon, to flourish. As that flourishes, it takes away the glucose from the blood. So just like a person who's diabetic that doesn't have enough sugar, her body feels like she's going into insulin shock. The brain says, I need sugar. The mind says, I want chocolate. Okay? Now, understand something. You get that double Dutch chocolate ice cream sundae in front of you. And if you ate 2 or 3 teaspoons and waited 20 minutes, a half an hour, the craving would go away. The problem is you still have the craving and you still feel empty, so you continue to eat. By the time you finish eating, you have 99% of that double Dutch chocolate sundae that's going to sit there and go into these parts of things, okay, later. So that's one of the problems with the hormones. You have to be able to understand what's going on in your body. To make a long story short with that one, 10 minutes passed and she didn't ask me for the chocolate. 15 minutes passed. At 20 minutes, I took the chocolate and I said, honey, do you still want the chocolate? And she goes, ugh, please, I couldn't even look at that. She had nothing but a little bit of sugar and some progesterone to keep her in balance. That was the difference. Let's talk about what are the main symptoms. If we look at men, men with low sex drive need to increase their hormones, okay, for the most part. Erectile dysfunction, enlarged prostate, weight gain, fatigue, and irritability are all symptoms of low testosterone or low androgens in their body. Women, hot flashes. Has anybody here ever had a hot flash? Okay, what is a hot flash? Let's say I said to you today, I'm going to take you, I'm going to put you here, and I'm going to put a big weight on top of your foot. And your friend is outside that door. And you can call to your friend, but your friend doesn't answer. How's the next call going to be? Louder, stronger, frantic, to get him or her to come and help you. Well, there's a call that's being released from the brain to the ovary saying, I need estrogen. Remember, we talked about that in the very beginning. But guess what? You got lazy eggs. And the lazy eggs are making very little estrogen. So therefore, the answer that I'm making estrogen is not being heard. So I'll send another message, and another message, and another message, and another, and another. 50 a day. Think about this, guys. Let's think about walking down the road and all of a sudden someone put a tube and you're at 140 degrees. Well, here it's not that far-fetched, but okay. And then all of a sudden you're at 120 degrees and then 160 degrees and then back down to 80 and back up. You would go nuts. You gotta be sensitive to the women that are experiencing these things. But they don't have to live this way. We can get the estrogen back, the right estrogen back, and when we get that estrogen back, all of a sudden the symptoms disappear. The hot flashes disappear. Night sweats is the same exact thing as a hot flash, except because you're laying down, blood is shunted to different parts of the body and you sweat more profusely. Terrible. I've had children that have come up to me and said, I thought mommy peed in the bed. Because, and it sounds funny, but they were serious. All of their bedspreads are soaking wet because of how much water they exudated from the heat. Insomnia. Well, let's talk about that person that's on Valium before. Person's on Valium, we take them off of Valium, they're very irritable. Do you think they're going to sleep well? No. Put them back on Valium and they'll sleep nicely. Put them back on progesterone and they'll sleep nicely. I have some people that come up to us and say, you know, I'm on Prozac because I went to the doctor and the doctor said, you're having menopause, here's Premarin. I came back and said, I still don't feel good. She said, well, you need Prozac. So it's a 1-2 punch, okay? Either you're Premarin or Prozac or more Prozac or whatever. And that's the way it goes. You know what? I say to them, you don't have a Prozac deficiency. You have a progesterone deficiency. And when you replace the progesterone, some of our patients have slowly diminished the amount of Prozac they use. I have people coming up to me and saying, you know, you're a pharmacist, but you're almost advocating the use of non-drugs. Because if I was able to take your system, then I won't need my Xanax anymore, and I won't need my progesterone, and it could be that I don't need all these other things that the doctor's got me on. Yeah, that's true. You could very well not need those medications anymore. But I'm not about selling you medication. I'm about trying to make you healthy. And if you have these deficiencies, you need to replace them only with the bioidentical. Forget the synthetics. Synthetics are the devil as far as I'm concerned, okay? Because all they do is wreak havoc on your whole system. Osteoporosis. Here's my little sign again. And I told everybody, I said, you know, I am not a painter. I am not a person who draws or anything like that. These are very, very crude, but they serve a purpose. Right now, if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, we have good medications, Actonel, Fosamax, Miacalcin, that are known to increase bone density. And they increase bone density, they rave about increasing bone density, anywhere between 4 and 6% over a 24 to 36 month period. And if you're constantly losing bone density and all of a sudden you start building it up, that's not a bad deal. That's a pretty good deal. The thing is, though, if you're low on hormones and you get your progesterone level back and you get your estrogen level back, guess what happens? You increase bone density by 18 to 22% over the same period of time. Why? Estrogen has been known, there are 2 different cells inside of the bone. Yeah, this is a bone, okay? Okay. Or at least half of one. There are 2 different cells that are found inside of a bone. One is called an osteoclast, which eats up old bone, and the other one is called an osteoblast that actually makes more new bone. Estrogen slows down the destruction of bone. Progesterone allows the osteoblast to make more bone. So if you're slowing down the consumption and increasing the formation, guess what happens to your bone? They get denser. How? Naturally. Low sex drive in women. It's a problem. It's a problem because it's almost taboo to talk about it. See, a man has erectile dysfunction, and it's a big problem. Women have erectile dysfunction. Nobody knows about it. See, you do have women with erectile dysfunction. The clitoris is very similar to a man's penis, okay? And it works in the same way. The same hormones are needed for it to engorge. The same hormones are needed for a woman to reach orgasm. It's all about the same, okay? Different quantities, different levels, but nevertheless, different amino acids that are needed for the facilitation of these things to happen. But nevertheless, it's just like a man's erectile dysfunction. I had one patient, I'll never forget. We got her hormones right. I'm sitting on my computer, I'm filling prescriptions, and she gives me a call, and she says to me, Rudy. I said, yes. She goes, it's Brrrrum. I can't tell you what her name is. And she goes, there's life down there. And she goes, 41 years. Now, remember I put you in a place of a 22-year-old? Now I'm going to put you in a place of a 41-year-old woman. How many of you can fit into that place right now? Okay? 41 years old, 3 marriages, never was able to have an orgasm. Never. Until we got our hormones right. She came back to me and said, is it possible that I had hormonal problems all my life and nobody ever diagnosed it? Yes, it is. Is it possible that I had hormonal problems when I was younger? Yes, it is. Which gets me into irregular menstruation. Irregular menstruation is a big pet peeve of mine. I have 4 girls, okay? 4 young girls. And because of the McDonald's, because of all the other things that are out there, they will develop in a strange way. Because of the chemicals that are out there, they will develop in a strange way. And a lot of the young girls now go to the doctor and complain about irregular menstruation. And what do the conventional doctors do? Here's a birth control pill. I ask you today, if I said to you at 15, 16, I give my daughter a driver's license, what does that allow her to do? Drive a car. Well, what are you giving our children when we give them a birth control pill? Don't do it. She's probably low progesterone, okay? Which, by the way, she'll be told actually encourages fertility, okay? People that are young have no business in doing the act because they're mentally not able to follow the consequences, okay? Let's help them. Let's help them by getting the hormones right for them, for all of those young people that need problems. So if you go out today, see, you thought you were coming in today to learn about it so that you could learn for yourself. And I look at, the 100 people that are here and I say, I've got 100 people that I'm going to send out into the world today that they're going to start looking at other people and saying, aha, low estrogen, aha, low progesterone, aha. That's what this person needs. You see somebody that's really irritable and say, that person definitely needs some progesterone, okay? You're going to see it. I mean, some people are going to say, oh, I wish I had a big vat. You can pick them up by the pigtails, put them right in, take them out. Okay, go on your way. Issues for men. This affects not only the sex drive, but also the energy levels, metabolism, and the weight gain. To the ladies here, if you go up and you say to your husband, honey, I want you to have your testosterone checked, he's going to say, what? Me? I'm just like I was when I was 19, okay? Let me tell you something. This is the truth. I hope you look at this and you say, it's got to be the truth, okay? Women will start talking about their hormones as soon in high school. You'll see it. There's one person that's having painful menstruation. So she's sitting in the back like this, and there's another one running center for her. She goes, you want to talk to her? You can't talk to her. You got to talk to me. And she's like covering for her, okay? She's covering for her. She goes, and they know. You see, they talk about it all the time. I guarantee you there's not one man here that today at the water cooler said, Joe, my erection isn't what it used to be 20 years ago. Okay? I guarantee it. It doesn't happen. We don't talk about it. Men don't talk about it. As far as men are concerned, okay, we're always 19. Okay? And you know what? My wife thinks I'm 19. My wife's like, well, you're not anymore. Okay? That's what I was talking about, is I want you guys to laugh a little. We're going to laugh a little bit today. We're going to cry a little bit today. But by the time you get out of here, you're going to have some type of an education of what's going on in your body. Here we go. This is the circadian rhythm of testosterone in a man. If you look between the hours of 11 and 4, it's when it's the highest. Okay? Subsequently, when a man is younger, he wakes up with an erection. Okay? If you also look at it, at 2:30, it's when it's the lowest. Well, now, wait a minute. 2:30 isn't low. Well, what happens when a guy's in his 50s or in his 60s? Some guys in their 30s and 40s. Okay? What happens around 2:30? Siesta time. Okay? Or they're running for the cup of coffee. Or they're running for the donut. Or they're doing something, cigarette, anything, to be able to get them going because their energy level's in the tank. Why? Because that's what happens. As we start to lose more and more of our testosterone, the circadian rhythm is still there, it's just at a lower level. So you reach that maybe a little bit goes up during the middle of the night. So what happens to the erection that happened in the morning when you were younger? It's gone. Okay? When your testosterone is low. It's gone. It's gone. Bye-bye. Okay? Now, let's put you in a 65-year-old man's body. What happens to the 65-year-old man when all of a sudden his testosterone's back, his zest for life is back, and he wakes up that morning with an erection? I'll tell you right now, he can shoot the lousiest golf game he did that day. He can do the worst he can do, but as far as he's concerned, it was a good day. Okay? It was a good day. You know why? Not because of any sexuality of it, because he looks at himself and he says, I'm not dead yet. Okay? I'm not dead yet. I still have some life inside me. And that's important, because if we can bring that back to people, that would make a huge difference in their lives. This is what happens with hormonal decline. In women, there's a constant fluctuation and a decrease, and then all of a sudden you're into menopause and there's a drop. Okay? In men, there's a constant, or I should say a constant, steady decrease, but it's linear, and it goes all the way down. Men can benefit from restoring hormones to a normal level when they experience decreased sexual drive or activity, difficulty in achieving or sustaining an erection, weight gain or difficulty losing weight, decreased strength and muscle size, persistent fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and mood fluctuations. These are just some of the symptoms, not all of them, but it make a big difference when you get those symptoms gone. In a marriage as well as, okay, for the person himself. You see, I'll tell you a lot of the little stories from the patients that have come our way, and hopefully you'll be able to connect with them and say, yeah, that sounds right, or yeah, that's me, okay? I had one couple that came in and they were in their early 30s, maybe late 20s. And they walked in And she was a wreck. She had gone through hysterectomy very early, and no one could get her hormones right. And he was just fit to be tied. He didn't sign up for this. You know, like Jan was talking about her husband. He didn't sign up for this. That's not the woman that I got married to. I don't know what I'm doing here. But now I have children and I have kids, and what am I going to do? And the kids looked very uncared for. Well, we got our hormones right. As we got our hormones right, she came back to us and told us a little story. I'm going to share this story with you today. It seems that they had this screen door off of their trailer that had all holes in it, and it was all beat up, okay? And every day the man would walk out of there and slam the door one way and slam the door another way because he was unhappy with his life. Well, we got our hormones straightened out. So she started doing more work around the house. He then said, well, she's doing more work, I should do more work. Okay, with a strange attitude that men have that think that we have to do whatever they do. If they don't do it, I'm going to do it. Okay, he should have been picking up after them. I won't give him it. Anyway, he starts doing more things around the house. She starts doing more things around the house. Before you know it, they start having sex again. They start taking care of the children again. He fixed the screen door. And he came back to me and he said, you know, I looked at that screen door for 2 years. And it was all these holes in it, and I didn't realize it stood there as a testament to how lousy my marriage was. And now that I fixed it, I look at it and I say, it stands there as a testament on how good my marriage is. And we just wanted to share that with you, Rudy, because you helped that happen. And I looked at that and I said, you know, can I use that story in my seminars? And they said, yeah, go ahead. Because I know that there's a lot of people out there that are looking at me and saying, my screen door has more holes than they do. Okay, help me fix it. And we can, and it takes effort on your part, but we can help you. Issues for women. Hormones affect women in a more dramatic way during menopause and perimenopause. Here we go. Let's say that that's the normal range, and P stands for progesterone, E stands for estrogen, T stands for testosterone. When a person is in perimenopause, all of their hormones drop. But if you notice, estrogen is higher. Do you know why? Because when the body asks for that estrogen to be made, okay, the ovary will make the same amount of estrogen, corresponding amount to progesterone, but the body still wants more estrogen. Is there any other system out there that can make more estrogen? Yes, the fat cells. So the fat cells now start making estrogen. And how do they do it? By stealing your testosterone. And as they steal your testosterone, what happens to your libido? It goes right down the tank. Okay? And here's the great news, ladies. Estrogen makes more fat cells, which makes more estrogen, which makes more fat cells. You see a pattern happening here, which makes more. And that's another reason why, when you were younger, you could eat whatever you wanted. And now you look down the Twinkie aisle and boop, these things start happening. And you fight, and you fight, and you fight, and you can't lose the weight. Okay? Hormones. What is perimenopause? Here's another great news for you. It can last up to 10 years. Hormones begin to be out of balance. Irregular cycles, emotional, mood swings. Ovaries begin to stop producing eggs. 1 month, you hit a pocket where there's one egg that's making a lot of hormones and you feel like you're 20 again. Another month, you've hit a pocket of eggs, and guess what? You feel like you're 84 years old. Okay? Brings up another question. How young is our youngest patient? 11. How old is our oldest patient? 84, and that's why I said 84. Okay? Is there a time that you shouldn't be on hormones? If you need them, like air, like water, like food, you need to be supplemented. If you can get your body to kick it up a notch and start making it on its own, especially for men, okay, then you can get off of it. But for a period of time, and I tell people, I say, you know, if you take this arm and you tie it, okay, over time this will become very, very fragile and very, very small because I'm not using it. I can then rebuild it and bring it back to where it was. But if I cut it off, then there's nothing I can do. If you wait too long to the point where you've cut down or shut down systems, then there's nothing that we can do about you rebuilding it again. You must be supplemented. Here's an interesting concept. If you look at this picture here, and we said to you, let's designate X's as being the bad estrogen. Because the question is, does estrogen cause cancer? Another question, does estrogen cause cancer? Show of hands, who thinks estrogen causes cancer? Okay. Estrogen causes cancer. One particular estrogen, as it starts to be metabolized, estrone goes down what's called a 16-hydroxy metabolic pathway, and 98% of all of our estrogen-related cancers are due to that 16-hydroxy metabolite. Estrone is the bad estrogen. So let's just say, for example, that we designate the bad estrogen as X, and a good estrogen, which is estriol, the one that protects you, as O. If we surround this one particular cell, and let's say this is the one cell in your body, okay? You're now just a one cell. I got you into a 22-year-old body, a 41-year-old body, an 84-year-old. Now you're just one cell. One cell with 4 different receptor sites. If you surround it with the bad estrogen, there's a good chance that the receptor sites will be filled with the bad estrogen and you will lead to cancer. If you surround it with the good estrogen, which is estriol, just like you were when you were younger, the chances are that the good estrogen will bind to those receptor sites and you'll have no cancer. Well, you say to yourself, is there proof? There are studies on the way now. But you should do it on your own mind. You should see from your own mind that this makes sense. When do you have a lot of the good? Well, you have a lot of the good when you're younger. If you look all the way to your left, you see a lot of the O's, which are the good estrogen. That's a person that had very little bad, a lot of the good, person that's younger. If you look in the middle, that's a person that's going through perimenopause, okay? Made only a little bit of the good, a little bit of the bad, and now the fat cells supplemented, and when they supplement, guess what? They make more of the bad. So as your risk starts to increase. If you go to the synthetics like Premarin, you will fill your body with equine estrogens, which are very similar in nature to estrone. So what happens? Your risk of cancer grows. This is what they don't tell you. This is what no one tells you. If you read the literature from the Premarin, it will actually tell you that we only ask you to use it for 4 years. Well, everyone's on it for 10, 12, 15 years. And they know that they can cause cancer in 10 years, and they say it'll cause cancer in 10 years, but rather we only advocate the use of it for 4 years. But once you're hooked on it, you're not going to get off. We say that's what the bioidenticals are. That's what you had when you were younger. The middle is what happens when you go into perimenopause. We can get you back. By putting on the natural hormones, we can get you the same ratios of good to bad. If you look at the actual chemical formulas for progesterone, you will find that human progesterone and bioidentical progesterone are identical. But all the way to your left, on your right, you see the red, which is Provera. 2 of those combinations, one has been proven to cause one type of cancer, the other one is proven to cause another type of cancer. Yet, when you use the natural ones, those cancers are not there. Why? Because you're messing with the keys that actually fit into different cells, okay? And will cause a DNA change. Let's move on. What is menopause? Ovaries stop producing eggs, levels of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone fluctuate. If you have no period for 12 months, you're said to be in menopause. Women, are you experiencing hot flashes? That's low estrogen. Memory loss, low estrogen. Night sweats, low estrogen. Mood swings, low progesterone. Vaginal dryness, low estrogen and testosterone. Sleeplessness, low progesterone. Painful intercourse, low testosterone. All of these symptoms correlate to a smaller amount or a disbalance or an unbalance in the hormones. So let's say we checked you and we found that you were low on some of these hormones and asked you to replace them. Guess what happens now? Now we say to you, it's not over. It's not that you were low on something, we're going to give it to you and that's it. Because look around you. Everybody's different. Right now, you go to the doctor and he'll give you 4 different sizes of Premarin. How well would you feel if I told you today that from now on you can only buy shoes in the size 1, size 4, size 8, and size 14? All of you in the middle, too bad. Okay? Make it fit. You would be in an uproar, but yet you accept the fact that they're saying to you there are 4 doses of hormones that we're going to give you, and that's what you have to fit in. I had a lady, she was 65 years old. She came in. She was on the 0.625 Premarin. She said to me, I told some of the other ladies here earlier, okay? She said to me, I went from 30 hot flashes down to 5 hot flashes. Now all of a sudden, she went back to the doctor and said, Doc, can we do anything? She goes, well, let's try the next higher dose, 0.9. Went up to 0.9, and guess what? Hot flashes went away, but now she has breakthrough bleeding and breast tenderness. So she said, you know what? If I had to choose between breakthrough bleeding and breast tenderness and or hot flashes, I'll take the 5 hot flashes. She went back down to the 0.625, and she stood there for 10 years. This is a woman whose husband is in charge of 1,500 doctors. Okay? No one knows. She came to our seminar. We gave her what we think was the right dose. She comes back to us and she says, you know what? Your stuff doesn't work as good as the Premarin. I have 10 hot flashes. I called the doc and I said, Doc, look, we need to up the dose of the estrogen. We know we start low, okay? But even though we have the safest estrogens and we know we start low, we have to up it just a little bit more. And we did. The next month she came back and she said, well, you know what? Your stuff is just as good as the Premarin. I have about 5 hot flashes or so. I said, okay, let me call the doctor again. Called the doctor, said, can we up it just a little bit more? He said, sure, no problem. And we did. All of a sudden she comes back and I said, how many hot flashes? And she looked at me and she goes, 10 years she dealt with 5 hot flashes a day. Okay? Conventional wisdom. We're talking about getting your hormones right. If you went for a wedding dress, you wouldn't think twice about going for 3 fittings. Okay? Hormones are something that must be tailored to everybody's individual body. Look around you, you're all different. You need everybody to be tweaked, as what we say, to get it right. Synthetic hormones increase the risk of cancer, contains estrogen and progesterones that are foreign to the body. Some use chemical in pregnant mare's urine as a base. Can cause undue weight gain. Yes, we have patients that come with us on Premarin. We get the natural hormones back into them. All of a sudden they drop 5 to 12 pounds. Why? The Premarin was holding on to an excess amount of water. Herbal remedies. No testing available to determine individual needs. No cardiac or osteoporosis protection. Hit or miss on hormone levels. No follow-up consultation to assess results, and symptoms may improve, but the underlying problem still exists. You need to get the hormones back into balance. What are the benefits of natural hormones? Relieve symptoms of PMS, including bloating, cramping, and irritability. Another wife story. Sorry, hon, wherever she is. We get this one, and we say, we were moving a couch. And as we were moving a couch, she says, oh, my period came. And I said, yeah. And she said, well, no bloating, no headache, no weight retention, none of this. What am I going to do? How did my period come? You're not supposed to have all of that. Okay? We have that. When you get the hormones in balance, that doesn't happen. I'm going to just tell you one more story, and I know I've been telling you a lot of stories. I want to tell you one more story, okay? And hopefully this hits it home. And it's my dad's story, okay? 5 years ago, he had a heart attack. And when he had a heart attack, went back to New York, we put a stent in his heart. And we put a stent in his heart. About 8 months passed, and I said, Dad, come on out, spend time with the family. And he says, I can't. I said, why not? He says, because my heart hurts. And I said, okay, back to New York. And I'm sitting there with a cardiologist and a radiologist, and we're looking at his heart. And he says, we're going to cut here, cut here, cut here, and we're going to put a vein from his leg, and we're going to do a bypass. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. The man's got osteoporosis. He's got thyroid problem. He's got diabetes. He's got all of these different problems. When he broke his leg, we could not put a cast on it. We had to wrap it up, and for 14 weeks, he stood there, okay? And subsequently, he had a little bit of a gimp because of it. Now you're telling me that we're going to break open his chest, We're going to break ribs. We're going to take a vein out of a leg that's already got, diminished amount of circulation. And you're going to do that to his... He goes, no, this is not an option. And he said to me, understand something. And I'll look everybody in the face about this. And he said to me, you take him out of here, and he's going to die. And he'll be in the bathroom one day, and he'll do too much strain, and he's going to die. And I said, took Dad, and I went up to him, and I said, Dad, this is what they said. And I go, I know that studies show that testosterone increases blood perfusion to the heart by 68%. I know that there's some great doctors that do chelation. I know doctors out here that do vitamin therapy. I know that if we got you on a strict diet and lost some weight. And he said to me, he goes, my mother died at 24. My father died at 60. Maybe it's my turn to go. And I said to him, I go, if you think it's your turn to go, then you're crazy, and I'm going to call Bellevue. We should fight not to die. We should fight to live the best life that we can, and we should fight to get the knowledge to do that. And he looked at me and he said, I'm putting my life in your hands. Let it be whatever God wants it to be. And I took him out here. And one of the doctors that helped me right there is Dr. George, did the chelation. And he helped him, with chelation. And we helped him with hormones. And we helped him with vitamins. And we helped him with everything in my arsenal. The man that could not walk 2 blocks and was told that he was going to die if he went and strained on the toilet bowl, In 2.5 months, we went past the 0.75 mile marker at Squaw Peak. And when we got up there, he looked at the last part going up and he said, you know what, I can make it. He goes, but I won't, because I'm scared that I may fall and break something and then you'd have to carry me down. So he brought me down. We went back down and I had this old car and we're sitting there and he's going like this in his hands. And I go, Pop, what's the matter? And he says to me, he goes, thank you for saving my life. That's my father right there. Okay? And that was 5 years ago. And subsequently, we got him to move out to Arizona. And he's very happy, and we're trying our best to get as many people as possible to get the same type of information.